Hello there, and welcome to the Inner Circle Boardrooms. If this is your first time here, a very special and warm welcome to you. My name is Kate Chauhan. This is a platform where you'll find me in discussions with founders, investors, and boards. The latest thinking into the market gaps, the opportunities, investing strategies. Today, I'm speaking with Nihat Arkan. He's the founder of a blockchain-based content management platform to establishing his own business. He was an experienced chief executive scaling up businesses based around sort of SaaS tech-based software companies. What I'm looking to do here today is really uncover some of the impact and implication for blockchain service providers. Really keen to understand why Nihat decided to go into that and understand some of the challenges that he's navigating through. But also what I wanted to really do was decode blockchain here. There seems to be stigma around it with governments, businesses to deploy and invest. The framework of our conversation will be around things like understanding exactly what is blockchain. I know some of us know the basics, understanding some use cases, who's actually investing in it, some of the gaps and opportunities, and more importantly, how to leverage blockchain. What is the value? What is the return for the average investor? And most importantly, how the bloody hell do you deploy it? So I have a fantastic guest. I can't wait to bring him on board. Delighted that he's agreed to have this conversation. Can I just get you to do introduction, who you are, and also tell us why blockchain and why now?
First of all, thank you, Kay. I really appreciate it, your invitation, and it's a pleasure talking to you. I mean, prior and now. My name is, as you mentioned, Nihat Arkan, and I established a blockchain-based content management platform this year. In fact, despite all the pandemic-related headaches that we go through, some of us still think the future and then involving a new business, which I have done with one of my very close friend and now a partner, Beyond Bayard. My background is I'm mostly involved educationally the international finance and international account management, business growth and all. And throughout my career, when I located in different countries, always took companies from usually like 10 to 20 million level and brought it to multiple $100 million levels. And in fact, I was in Leeds just last couple of years until end of 2019. Educationally involving in finance and managing multinational companies, multicultural companies, when I came to Leeds, one thing special happened. Because of my interest in technology, as you rightly pointed out, the beginning of 2000s, I involved heavily the SaaS-based technology management organizations. Although I'm not a technology person, I am more coming on the business finance side, I got to have a fascination to the technology. Therefore, when I was in UK, I went to Oxford University's blockchain strategy certification program. And my interest was purely to understand what blockchain is and what's the relevance to our future. And that made me completely understood one fact, and that is truly the future is around the blockchain. And dealing with the content management or the product content management made me to say, well, it's time for me to take an entrepreneurial hat and come back to Germany to start this new, let's say, the company that focuses on the blockchain. In my previous companies, I manage the information behind the barcode. When you go, for instance, to Marks and Spencer, the Sainsbury, or any other retail stores around the world, when you scan the product that you purchase, you see the price. Price is just one attribute. Very similar to price, there are over 4,000 unique content attribute is behind the barcode, from supply chain to the compliances, consumer related content to logistic related content. There are many information, but throughout the years, there are some critical content never been shared because of the security, because of the trust, because of many other reasons. And then, for instance, the price of a product or promotional price of the product never been exchanged, despite the fact that we have a very extensive content data management system exists today. And then when I was in Oxford, and I realized one fact: if you're dealing with such critical content and you're afraid not to share, then you need a trust, and the blockchain comes to play that. So I had this aha moment, and I came back to here, to Germany, to establish this very company once I have that experience. So I hope I can give you the little bit of my background, where I came from and why I started this little new startup.
For the average business leader, when they think of blockchain, I think the way it's been emphasized, it's a platform in which you basically transfer data. Is it as basic as that?
I mean, you are absolutely very close to it. Before we go what the blockchain is, let's talk about what blockchain is not. It's not a publicly managed and a wild, let's say, a platform or let's say, a technology. The second, it's not Bitcoin. One of the biggest, maybe the misconception that many people had is, because of the Bitcoin being based on the blockchain platform technology, everybody immediately, when they hear cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, they remember the blockchain. And unfortunately, like in any other technology or in any new, let's say, industry or sector comes to play, or companies comes to play, there are irregularities. So when the cryptocurrencies came with the blockchain technology, the beginning of the, let's say, this journey, like even we can go back to like almost 7-8 years, there were a lot of irregularities happened. And because of those irregularities, and second, the authorities, as we call it, like for instance, the governments, the banks network, and many other like networks that you need to really control for the safety of the public and the users, use the blockchain. And then they were afraid of the blockchain because you cannot control it. When there is a value exchange between two, let's say, entities, person, whoever, you cannot really control it. That's why there was a resistance. Number one, with the misconception of the Bitcoin, brought it with the blockchain, and this is only for cryptocurrencies. And second, the fear of uncontrollable environment made the blockchain somewhat, let's not look into this technology. And that's the reason it delayed. But that misconception is being cleared. And therefore, for our audience, my recommendation is to tell them, as you rightly pointed out, this is purely a platform, a technology platform, which I will explain in details, but it's a platform that you exchange information and content, data, and then you store that content, data in a very, very, very secure way.
So I'm just going to lead on to that with a question and a concern. We know that there's been a lot of accounting fraud with even governments as well.
Exactly, you're right. And in just, I mean, accounting is a brilliant example, okay? But at the same time, please think about like Virgin Atlantic losing thousands of their customers' credit card details but to hackers. Why is that happening? I mean, why there is no enough security? Or is it maybe a shortcoming of the technology platform that they use? Blockchain will solve all of these. Let me give you an example. You have a very nice pearl necklace. Take that necklace, put in a safe, put another safe on top of it, put another one, put 1,000 safes on that necklace to protect it. But it's in there, it's just one place. If I am interested to get that necklace and steal it, I'll figure out one way or another. It's going to be difficult, but go with the first safe, second safe, third safe, and eventually I can get that necklace. But in the blockchain case, take the same necklace, give one pearl of that necklace to me, the other one to your next door neighbor, another one to your mother, another one to your brother, sister, husband, wife. In order for me to steal the entire necklace, I have to go all those houses the same time and try to steal it. That's impossible. Get that information and put it in a blockchain. If the credit card information of the Virgin Atlantic would have been on a blockchain, the minute that the hacker goes to hit the first block where the information was stored, similarly the pearl, the piece of the pearl, the rest of the blocks would know that there's something problem there. And then eventually everybody would know that somebody is trying to hack that information, and it prevents that. In order that the hacker to get that credit card information needs to go to the entire blocks and try to steal it, all that information at the same time. That's not technically possible.
How easy is it to put blockchain on the layer of the ERP system that you're using at the moment? Is it as simple? I just see people trying to take control. People don't want control taken away from them. And some people don't want the visibility because they don't want to be exposed. Is there a challenge there?
There is definitely a transformation challenge. But it's in today's world, or in today's technology, these are really very easy, and it's just simply a time-related digital transformation efforts needs to be done, and it needs to be done in any way. Okay, let me explain you the why we call it blockchain. Because in today's world, you always also hear now, or started to hear, because of maybe the negativity around the blockchain, it's called DLT, Distributed Ledger Technology. Same concept, same ideas. Blocks, please think about a storage place. Then you have another block storing the same data, the same content, but between the blocks, you're also connecting them with certain principles called hash. And then with those certain principles enables you to how to reach that data, that content. And then they also carry each block's information to each other. In other words, you have the blocks chained by certain principles, and then that certain principles not only carries the information or the data of what's being recorded, also how this is somewhat being communicated between the blocks. So once you have thousands of blocks, you have a very, very secure and understanding platform that each moves and carries the information based on the certain blocks and then certain principles. When you purchase let's say we talk about the Bitcoin, all of these blocks records that Kay bought this one Bitcoin and now it belongs to her. You don't even have to say K, you can say just XYZ, and that's it. As long as the humanity lives, that content will remain there. And more importantly, we will come to a trust point. Nobody can ever touch it. It's immutable record, immutable content. And that's where the trust will come.
When I think of governments, media, corporations, banks, we live in a distorted world. Even the stock market, nobody can even make it up. But that trust element, I suppose blockchain, I think, adds a lot of value. If you're a brand that wants to build trust, you're a brand that wants to protect your people. And I mean, when I say your people, I mean your consumers. And, you know, you want to put a layer of trust on top so you take market share. Do you think, in your opinion, business leaders really get it? And if they do get it, what is stopping them?
They started getting it. What's stopping that is that because they have so many topics that they need to deal with, and therefore, like, that's kind of slowing down. But in today, I mean, there was a World Economic Forum in Davos in 2018 that the blockchain and blockchain-based platform usage for day-to-day operation is really listed as one of the top 5 topic that all the CEOs and CIOs have in mind. When you buy a Louis Vuitton bag, or when you buy a Rolex watch, or any luxury item that you pay thousands of dollars or euros, pounds, how would you know that if it's an authentic product? Today, close to 100 billion counterfeit comes to the market every year, 100 billion. And to my surprise, when I looked at the luxury retail market, over 30 billion are online sales. So all the Burberry in UK to Gucci in Italy, Louis Vuitton in France have been losing over 30 plus billion worth of products to counterfeits. So how do you really know that this is the real product that you as a consumer knowing it? So with Yalioma, what we're trying to do is by leveraging the blockchain, day one of any product that you consider luxury retail or luxury product, then you can record it in the blockchain. And from that point on, that the ownership of that product, authenticity of that product can be verified by leveraging the blockchain, and nobody can touch it. Not only the first buyer as you of that Louis Vuitton bag, but when you are ready to sell your Rolex watch, your bag, or your bicycle, you will be able to tell the next person, look, this belongs to me. With a little app, you can see that how authentic it's the real product. And then I will give the ownership to you. You can claim the ownership. So the blockchain provides you that infrastructure, and the applications help the consumer to really understand if this is a real product. And in Yalioma, one other thing we would like to do is that when you are buying that Louis Vuitton bag, or as simple as a bag of pasta, you would like to know if, first of all, that pasta coming from a farm that never used pesticides or never used, let's say, child labor, or when the retailer purchased that pasta, they really paid the fair trade price. With the blockchain, you can record all that data into the system. So you as a consumer, when you're at the Sainsbury, Tesco buying that pasta, you'll be able to see where that farm, where is that product is coming from. 100% authentic content, nobody can touch it, and it's also certified. And that's the trust and transparency you could give to your consumers. And so it's not, I talk about the luxury retail, but our intention is to provide that transparency and creating that trust, building that trust using the blockchain technology.
To be provocative here and say, yes, they want trust in brand, but do they really want to expose where they're getting their supply chains, how much they're paying? When I look at companies like Tesla, Apple, Samsung, Huawei, I think they want that level of secure information. The transfer of data and storing it is important. The likes of Apple and Tesla and every other name that I mentioned, do they really want to be transparent? Some of that secret sauce, a bit like KFC, is in their ingredients and the way they make the product.
I'm involved in many of the names, brands that you mentioned in their supply chain management processes, because when you deal with the product content, you deal directly with their supply chains. In most cases, they don't have a control over it. What I mean by that is that in Apple's, or take it the luxury retail, Louis Vuitton, Gucci's, or any retails, even the retailers who are selling food products, they do not have complete control of their supply chains. When I say the control, for instance, they deal with multiple suppliers, multiple players within that supply chain. So they may have, and I am sure like these big companies do have all the intention to be environmentally, friendly, really respecting the labor and then the fair trades and all the rules that we can think of today exist in humanity, but they cannot control all the other players. Because of that, to your point, that they may be reluctant to open their complete supply chain for full visibility, because they can control the person who are buying a coffee in Colombia if they are paying to their labor the fair trade prices or the fair, the labor fees. they wouldn't know. So in other words, like I would say 95% of the time, because of lack of full control of their complete chain, they will be maybe reluctant to show the transparency. But that is going away.
Can we have some use cases and,
Absolutely.
yeah, so people can understand how it's actually been used?
In German government now asking all the retailers who are touching the food products to provide full visibility in their supply chain. For instance, where they have purchased this, how they purchased it, what practices that they followed, how it went through the process of each stage of the supply chain before it became a product for a consumer to purchase. And they want to have certain rules around this. Right now, that particular law is in the hands of the parliament. And we expect in the first quarter of 2021, it will come as a law. When it becomes a law, all the retailers, all the companies, even e-commerce companies have to give that transparency to the consumers, and they have to comply with the rules that will be defined by this law. And this is coming, and this is inevitable. Once Germany does that, the next step will be the European Union. And European Union already have a lot of plans to provide much more transparent content, information, data to the consumers for almost all the products, starting with, of course, healthcare and as well as the food products. So it's coming, it's inevitable. The question will be is, where are you going to keep that content? Which technology are you going to use to verify the authenticity as well as the fair trade status of the products? Where are you going to keep the transactions where you can really fully document it and give it to a government or other compliance agencies where you can really monitor it securely and transparently? I can tell you, it's the decentralized recording. And it's a decentralized blockchain-like technologies will be the future of this whole supply chain management systems.
Do you think there will ever come a point where people will have control of their own data?
This is absolutely yes. And this is one of the main, maybe the principle why the blockchain has maybe established and for the Bitcoin, because many of the people who are involved the first time establishing Bitcoin is a currency, we call it currency, actually it's a value, and then that just changes hands. And they wanted to use the blockchain to avoid the third parties, let's say authorities involved in it. But I'll come to you, this is a perfect point I wanted to talk to you about the governments and the authorities. Your information, okay, as a citizen is absolutely unique to you, and that it has to be protected that way. And therefore, more and more governments are involving in the blockchain technologies, and then they are started using this distributed ledger systems to record the citizenship information. In year 2000, I believe was 15, you know about the G7 countries, right? G20 countries, the most wealthy 7 industrialized company, they have G7, so they have meetings and now they expanded that to G20, and there's always a G20, and of course UK is part of it. But back in 2015, there is another establishment put together called D5. So the 5 governments came called Digital 5. Estonia is one, Ireland was UK.
I thought you were going to say the most debted, but...
So they came together, and now it's D15. The last member was Canada, added into it. They deal and they exchange information, they come together. It's absolutely at the technology level to look into how they can really provide services to their citizenship, leveraging the digital environment. For instance, please think about the voting that happened in US, and then we are still, the presidential election, still everybody disputing about voting. If we would have leveraged the blockchain into the voting systems, we wouldn't have such issues. In like milliseconds, once the doors are closed for voting, the blockchain technology which records the content in such a trusted way, such an immutable, untouchable way, and unique to the citizens, unique to you, unique to me, and then record that in a historical level, then there wouldn't be any discussion.
Why hasn't it been used, just out of interest? Because you make a very good point.
It's moving there. This D15 countries have started using more and more such technologies for their citizens. For instance, voter registration.
Do governments want their citizens to have the power? Because you ultimately giving your people power by having the level of transparency, which is what people want. But again, you could look at when Trump was voted, you know, people will say that he shouldn't have been there, but the votes clearly state that he was voted in. So why hadn't this already been used if we knew it was out there? There's obviously a blockage there to why it's not going through. There's something stopping it, or somebody, or the DeFi. There is a stigma attached to it.
It's getting there. I mean, this is like when you think of the US system, there are 50 states that we're talking. And when it comes to the voting processes and the voting rules, each state is different.
Yeah.
So an underlying technology that which we are talking is going to come. It's inevitable. It will be there. Not just voting. And I don't think that there is anybody trying to prevent this. It's just a matter of time and having the states or the governments understand the value of that.
Yeah.
Because please also think about not just voting, but everything related to you. Your car registry, your publicly viewable record of your house or your other properties. And this is absolutely needs to be done and will be coming. And more governments are putting your birth certificates, your marriage certificate, your children information, the many other information related to purely to you, like for your retirement information, into the technologies like blockchain, and which will mean that it's going to be 100% protected. So nobody can like come, even certain countries, people try to change even the record deeds of the houses.
Yeah.
It will not happen. For instance, I think it was in Dominican Republic when there was an earthquake. The entire records of people's property, land, and house records destroyed. That's how, like, once, even if you have an earthquake, or I don't know, God forbids, if you have a nuclear bomb, still the records will not disappear there, and which will bring, first of all, trust, and trust again to the government and the records of the government.
If you're a chief executive, you're dealing with legacy and policy, which are the two biggest things that hinder any business from moving forward. What should you be doing if you're looking at blockchain? How do you navigate through that? So what steps would you say to anybody that was looking at blockchain that they need to be taking, or then, in your opinion, that they're not already doing?
Perfect question. I would definitely would love to answer this, but Kate, please also, when you mentioned your personal information as a citizen, but please also think your personal information as a patient as well. Since we are going through a pandemic, there are tons of information that exists for the patients that needs to be protected. Like hospitals need a secure platform to store and share sensitive data. And I assure you, the blockchain and the distributed ledger technology can help hospital. Like you're in UK, you have NHS. So NHS safely storing medical records, sharing them with authorized doctors, and making patient having a full power of their data. Like even if your data is going to be used in a research for whatever reason, you need to be aware of it. You need to really give that permission, and maybe you get a benefit out of by sharing your content, your data, your information, because it's sensitive and unique to you. And therefore, like, I truly see UK, NHS, many other systems moving into leveraging the blockchain, similar to citizenship services, like all the records and all that, because of its security, and then what trust and the way of the trust it will bring to the people.
I have this vision in my head that just like your mobile phone, By I will have everything that's encrypted, like a blockchain, and I'm going to have all my data stored there. So everything from my medical records, everything from all my passwords, everything from anything to do with my DNA in any way, my fingerprint, my everything. I think everything's going to be, but it's going to be my. This pandemic has made everyone realize one thing: is digital's here and it's here to stay.
Exactly. Exactly. You are absolutely correct. That's what we call a digital wallet. You will have your wallet, your digital wallet, either you can record your Rolex watch, or you can record your personal information in that wallet, and it will belong to you. Whole control will be belong to you. And when you are ready to share that, then we have the smart contracts, which is part of the blockchain systems, ecosystems, that whoever fits in that smart contract principles which you define, then the information, value, your Rolex watch, your Louis Vuitton bag can go to that person or that entity. You don't even need to know the name, but it will go to that person. So absolutely, this is coming. Digital wallets where you keep your records, all the way to do smart contracts to exchange based on the certain principles that you agree that information to third parties. Coming back to your question, today's CEOs, CTOs, what they have to think about it. You know, we are living in a world that where the content and data is considered a king. I disagree. Content is not the king. Data is not the king. Relevant content, up-to-date the content, up-to-date data, real trustable data is the king. Not all the contents, all the data are the king. Is that content is correct? Is it relevant? That's why that's very important that in today's world, any companies, any CEOs has to ask questions to themselves. Number one, is my company needs to collect and store information, content, data? Do I need content, the collection and storage? Then come the second question. If the answer is yes, then okay, if when I collect that content and that data, is it relevant? Meaning that am I going to use that content to give to multiple departments or people within my organization, like accounting department, logistic department, sales department, development department, compliances for the governments or so. So number one question, do I need to collect data, content? And if the answer is yes, then the data and content I collect, is it relevant? And then am I going to share it with everybody? And again, the question is yes to this second question. Then we have to ask, is that content that's coming and I'm collecting, which I need, can I trust everybody 100%? We talk about the retail supply chain, like from farm to fork or seed to shelf. There are concepts like that that you need to track the product. And again, the third answer is yes. Then the last question they need to ask is that, okay, can I establish a system that all this content, all that data coming into my system, which I will share with multiple parties, can I keep it in a place that I can trust? And the answer is yes, that's the blockchain. That's the distributed ledger. So that's the logic has to come in. And in my view, almost all the companies, governments that deal with the information, data, content, at one point will move into this blockchain distributed ledger technology platforms.
In your opinion, where does it go wrong?
I think that it's just a matter of time. And
is it time, is it investment, or is it something else? You're simply looking to have transparency in data visibility, then surely something in that supply chain is the bottleneck.
That's true. Like the key thing is that by getting that content, data, information, that your intention is to make it better, whatever you're involved. If you're a government, you want to give a better service to your citizen. If you're a company, you want to sell more, And then if the demand is that you can sell more to me if you give me the transparent way of the supply chain. So at the end, what you try to do by leveraging this content is analyzing it and bringing some meanings to you, then you could do better. And therefore, in order for you to analyze that content, you need to really have a trusted content, trusted information that when you analyze it, the results will be reliable, will be something that you can leverage. If there is not enough or a good content, good data, your response or your end result will not be good. Therefore, like I think it's a matter of time. If I look at it, let's say 2015, Estonia, I'll give you a country, only 6 to 7% of their the citizenship work or relationship managed into technology, digital work. Today is close to 80. And 80% of their entire citizenship relationship leverage onto the distributed ledger system, and all the citizens are leveraging even their, for instance, making a meeting appointment through the system, retirements, their kids' school money, everything is managed onto the system. Most governments are moving into that. Therefore, I am very hopeful, and I really think that blockchain is going to be the future, has already been arrived. In the past, when banks were so afraid of using that, today Barclays is leveraging the blockchain to protect their consumer data because they know it's much more trusted and they can protect that. And there are many other, not only financial companies, which of course they have the means to go in faster, but I expect governments, retail industry, the FMCG industry, all of them will eventually move into that. And my intention is to help them to understand this. I am more on the consumer side with the Eliomo, but eventually all the industries will leverage this.
When you just have a global pandemic and there's so many different moving parts at the moment, you can see it's coming and the value in it. Where do you find the investment? And what's the ROI for the average investor?
Many companies, many venture capitals, many private equity firms have started more and more investing this trusted technologies and trusted technology-based services applications, because they also realize that this is the future. Even, for instance, when I look at, let's go back to luxury retail, Louis Vuitton has decided to leverage the blockchain. They're going to record all their products onto the blockchain technology. Similarly, Breitling, the expensive luxury watches in Switzerland, from now on to 2021 onwards, will provide fully blockchain-based recorded watches when they sell it to their consumer. On the other hand, when I look at the Walmart, one of the giant, Asda was part of the Walmart in UK, has now started tracking their food products all the way from the farm to their stores. So step by step, this is coming to play, and people are realizing, companies are realizing, this is where you have to make a difference. Building trust comes by providing transparency. And that comes with a secure and trusted platforms, technologies like blockchain, like distributed ledger.
Why haven't the big tech companies put more of an emphasis on it, such as the Googles and the Facebook, particularly the Facebook, given that one of their biggest challenges is trust? Could that not be a way for them to reposition themselves in the marketplace as being a trusted brand?
I would say the Google, Amazon, all the big tech companies are already using these technologies. They are already not just keeping their content information in one place. They have all these distributed places, the technology platforms that they keep their content. I think the challenge with these big companies are that the content data that they have in their hand, they use it in a ways that sometimes we're not happy with. And the question is that how can we really take the ownership of that data onto ourselves.
The question is, how mainstream will it go? Whilst these leaders will start using it, it's about you utilize it where you actually need it. You don't need it right across the business. It could just be in certain functions such as finance, in marketing, in your human capital.
You don't really need to put everything on a blockchain. I mean, that's really, but when it comes to some critical content, some information that's valuable and needs to be controlled and sensitive, then you absolutely need to go in such places like the blockchain. And, if you look at, I mean, it's a little bit philosophical comment I will make is that in the beginning, then when land was important, then comes where the factories with the industrial revolution, when the factory or capital were important. Now is the content. Now is the data, is the value. So who controls in the past the land or the factories? Now, whoever controls the content data will have the power, will have the control. And therefore, I think it's quite important that we all understand that. All these big tech companies already know about this. They draw their conclusion, their business decision from controlling that content. The question would be is that, like, then how do you as authorities like government don't have such power, capital power or knowledge to protect your citizens? And that's why I really believe the technologies like blockchain will give that power back to the individuals rather than the big capital or big entities like Google's or Facebook.
I'm shifting gears a little bit, slightly away from blockchain. When you hear these headlines and you see what's going on with the Amazons, Google, and the Microsoft, what do you make of the ecosystem? Like, from these big tech companies?
I think more and more governments are realizing that providing a very open platform and ability these tech companies to collect the content and manage that content and eventually draw some conclusion out of that, sometimes not perfect for the individuals. And therefore, I see more and more legislation coming in. Certain countries started already looking into this and then trying to put some limits to it. Therefore, like my expectation is instead of breaking down to companies like Facebook or Google, there will be more controlling legislation will come in to really make sure that what they do with that content, and in most cases, if you're a company collecting a content related to market or related what you are doing individual, it's okay. But when you're collecting a content from an individual, for instance, if me as a Pfizer or a pharmaceutical company know that there are more people coming to have a cancer in Germany in this particular region versus in London, then I will take my entire business differently or invest differently. But where is that content is going to come from? From individuals, from the people who may have a cancer or whatever. Then in that case, that's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not, first of all, fair for the individuals. And second, it's not fair for the rest of the competition. So in such cases, my expectation, instead of a breakdown, more controlling will come onto the individual content. And then the power will eventually shift to you and me as normal citizen, rather than in the hands of the big data or content companies that Amazon or Google. We may opt out. We may say, okay, for a X amount of money, you can use my content, but I need to know where you're using it. But I think that control is coming.
If we take corporate fraud into consideration, we already know that 50% of corporate fraud happens from within. Why isn't things like blockchain being used internally within the business?
You could definitely, and today many companies have started like recording, for instance, their financial transaction into the blockchain.
Over 50% of any cyber threats happen from within. Why is it organizations aren't using something like blockchain? Also, when we look at corporate fraud, why is it that the auditors aren't demanding for blockchain to be used through some of their clients? Could that not eliminate some of those?
It could have, definitely. And if you would have, for instance, you gave a very good example that if they lost 2 billion incredible. In the businesses I manage, okay, it wasn't like $10 billion companies, but even $100 euro pound would have been tracked easily if you really put all this, everything into the systems. But I mean, when you have humans, you always have a way of like getting away from the, let's say the regular practices. And if it would have been recorded properly, and if the blockchain would have been used to that transaction, then you could have also see what happened. Because in the blockchain case, one of the key things is that you can keep a historical record of what happened to whatever is you're doing. And when beside that, which is a timestamp, the same time, you can see who has done it. So then, which means that it brings not only the transparency, it brings also liability on people who are doing that. And at the end, you can keep them liable, you can keep them responsible for it. Therefore, you're right, it could have been used. I'll give you a very interesting use case for a blockchain, goes what you have just raised, which is to NGOs. The NGOs which we give money to go give it to, let's say, the poor people, or protecting animal rights, or protecting the environmental rights. Once you put their entire record onto the blockchain, all their transaction, then you can avoid this common complaints coming into charities for inefficiencies or corruption. And it can help the donors to use the blockchain promoted by these NGOs to see where their donations is going. And they can keep these NGOs liable for this. So to your point, same goes with the investors. If I'm giving my money to a company that I want to track, then if everything is recorded on a blockchain, which is accessible by me, which is nobody can change it once it's put into, then I can track it. So from NGOs to see where your donation is going and avoiding any corruption or inefficiency, all the way to the investment processes, when the records are kept on the blockchain, you can not only, you don't only see it, understand it, also you can keep people responsible for or liable for it.
Sometimes you can have a high level of intelligence and you can get it wrong, not see the gap. It doesn't matter how much money you've made, because, you know, I sometimes speak to people and they say, look, you know, I've been very successful up until now and I've been lucky. The world that we're going into, you need more than just luck. Even if you've got all the money in the world, that's great, but it just takes that one bet that you get wrong. It's like going to the horses and betting on the wrong horse.
It's like energy management. Like we use energy like electricity, we use almost everywhere. That's in our house, even now in our cars. But we all know that energy management has been a highly centralized industry for many, many years. But with the blockchain usage, energy producers and users today cannot buy directly, but with the blockchain, they can. And they can just, in fact, like contribute their excess energy back to the grids where it can be used or sold to other parties. And today, once you have one energy company, then that cannot be done. Another interesting use case I can maybe mention is the music industry. There are today, you can look at it, Google it, like blockchain startups coming, many of them, with the ways that musicians getting paid directly from their fans instead of having third parties or any companies involved. And with the smart contracts, which blockchain completely provides, they can solve licensing issues. And they can just create catalog of songs with their respective creators. And therefore, like today, you have to go through many parties to access, I don't know, your favorite musician's songs. In the future, with the blockchain being part of our day-to-day operation, that will never happen. You can deal with the musician directly based on the principles defined in the smart contract. And then another example I just gave is the energy. You can even buy in UK an energy from France in a competitive price if both parties are involved. And by a person in Paris their excess, maybe solar created energy, and use it in your London house by using the blockchain technology and paying them directly without any third parties involvement. These are all going to be, I'm talking a little more futuristic, but this is what blockchain promises to bring: elimination of the third parties, the middleman, and bringing complete transparency into any transaction, and more importantly, building a trust between the parties involving in any business.
When you have conversation with business leaders, which you are, what sort of feedback do you get from them? What sort of reaction when you talk about blockchain?
More and more people are now understanding that this is really something inevitable. It's coming, and they need to understand and adopt it more and more. And then since the misconception around this, oh, it's a cryptocurrency, oh, it's not controllable, oh, it's just public content or platform, is just fading away, and people are now getting more to it. And then, okay, what's driving this is us, consumers, people, citizens. Because when I look at the X and Y generations, they are now coming to age that they are earning money, they are financially more independent, and they're more and more demanding. For instance, before they buy any product, they want to have a transparency. They want to understand how that product is being built. Like if I'm buying a Louis Vuitton bag, I want to make sure that the leather used there is not coming from let's say, from an elephant, and or some species that's not been touched, shouldn't be touched. And therefore, like all that transparency, more and more demand for transparency, pushing more and more companies like Louis Vuitton to Tesco to give that type of content information to their consumers. So we are driving that. And the CEOs and all that are absolutely seeing it more and more, and it's becoming mission critical for their business success. We're not there yet, for sure, for the blockchain, but my estimation is that we are maybe 5 to 7 years behind to become a really, truly a mainstream technology.
From a CEO has an ERP system, how easy is it for me to put a blockchain on top of that?
Depends on how big your entity is, but I would say between 3 months to a year, you should be able to really transfer your key component of business into some distributed ledger system. Because at that, you're not touching the services applications on the top. You are just changing what's in its inlay, which is the platform infrastructure. So like you're changing the roads where you store the information, the top is not changing. Therefore, it's not really a very complicated process.
Does blockchain sit within that infrastructure or a layer on top?
It's at the bottom. It's completely, you put your systems onto the blockchain, and therefore nothing changes here, but where you store the data, where you transaction the content and keep it becomes the blockchain distributed ledger.
Okay, I'm going to really dumb this down. I'm a business. I've got an ERP system. I haven't got one ERP system. I've got several ERP systems. I've got one for finance, one for HR, one for marketing. They don't all talk to each other at the moment. I'd love to have that system, but I don't have the money to invest in it. So I'm going to stick with what I've got. A priority is to be able to get a level of transparency and keep the data secure from cybersecurity hacks. How different is blockchain to me getting some sort of virus protection so hackers can't go in? Am I better off going with blockchain or with a cybersecurity expert who's going to get me something that protects and shields that data being stolen?
Cybersecurity, you need to have that in any case, even for your other content. In reality, even the cybersecurity, which we call it maybe security of the internet or web, is leveraging the blockchain to eliminate any type of hacking, any type of unauthorized changes or usage. Because when you put your content, as I mentioned, like we gave earlier the example of the Virgin Atlantic, once you have that data into the blockchain, nobody can hack it. So you will have very, very trusted and secure data or content protection for you. And you can just eliminate any need for the middleman. How you define the cybersecurity is the question. The cybersecurity is like maybe a layer. Somebody comes in and try to get into your content. What blockchain provides you is that when that's even broken and comes to the content, it's known. It will give you let's say, information that, hey, your content is being, touched. Nobody can get it because it's a blockchain, but hey, somebody is trying to get that. Detection will come from the first layer, and but sometimes they can fool that. And that's why you need to have a blockchain to have that complete security. So people may come in and then pass through your cybersecurity. But then since the content data is located in the blockchain, in multiple blocks around the world, then they cannot go get all of that. They can still harm you in a much smaller, because like when you have a content, you don't need to get the entire content to harm a company or a person. Therefore, you have to have that cybersecurity enabling you not to go too deep, but at least to protect you at a certain level. But when your information to give you a complete harm is on the blockchain, nobody can touch you. For instance, that's the case, because you don't record everything in the blockchain. The blockchain is a recording platform. You record an information there. But if somebody comes and access to that information, not to steal it, but just access it, then you may still have some problems. You won't lose that content. For instance, in the Bitcoin today, I'll give you a cryptocurrency example. What the blocks in the Bitcoin system records is who is the owner and how much Bitcoin he has, period. That's all. And but when it comes to, let's say your credit card information, your numbers are recorded that, and it's protected. But your name, for instance, your social security or whatever can be compromised. So the point is that, like, since blockchain only records a content, accessing that content also has to be somewhat protected. They cannot get the content and change it, but they may access it, and that's why you have to have also the security on the top.
You could have my credit card details, which have my name, my 16-digit PIN, my sort code, my account number. Usually you have your expiry and the start date, some yes or no, and then you have the 3-digit number at the back. What we're saying is blockchain could what blockchain would do is divide that all up. So even if a hacker came through and took all the 16-digit numbers, they wouldn't necessarily have the rest of that information because it's all been split and divided and put into a safe.
And they cannot change it. They cannot say, now I own this credit card or I own this whatever. Because the minute that they try to make a change on one block, where you have your content, immediately all other blocks will know, and then that will stop it, and which is the protection and to you. Banking and finance, they started using it. As I mentioned, Barclays has been using the blockchain. They have deployed and they're using it. And more I expect, especially in finance industry, where the data is much more critical, information is much more critical, people have started using it. Internet security, entire supply chain in every level, as we discussed, insurance sector, which we haven't maybe discussed, any type of like integrated smart contracts in the insurance companies is absolutely going to be using it. For instance, we mentioned the luxury retail. Like, for instance, if you have a Rolex watch and I come in with my app, I see it, it's recorded in the blockchain, it really belongs to you. I see all the details of the that Rolex watch, me as an insurance company, I immediately can insure it because I have all the details that I need. There is no, let's say, fake information related to that. I wouldn't even say that, oh, this is a fake Rolex. It's a real Rolex. It's recorded. It's here. So it's a lot of security, a lot of trust that me as the insurance company can get also from my consumers when that content is also recorded in the blockchain. Any type of recording and keeping the content. We talk about the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, charities, definitely governments, absolutely governments, from voting to citizenship services, as well as anything related to citizen type, like retirement information, marriage, divorce, having kids. All the health industry is absolutely using it very heavily. We'll be using it for patient information, sharing the sensitive data related to patient, energy management, music industry, for sure retail. We talk about heavily the retail industry, supply chain, real estate for sure. I mean, in most cases, not in UK or the European Union countries, but in Africa or South America, in many places, people sell apartments, houses, lands that actually not belongs to them.
You've come from a content SaaS-based company previously. You've been leading these businesses. You've been the chief exec of these businesses. Have you just been converted? I mean, when you're working for these businesses,
converted, definitely.
When you were working for these businesses, content management business you've worked with, were you using blockchain?
We weren't, and the blockchain wasn't really known as well. And we were just using very secure data centers around the world, but it was always secured in one place. And we always had they call it redundancy, or somewhat like if something happens to this center where we keep all our data content, what should we do? And then we usually create a second data center that protects if something happens, this at least we can use this. We were paying millions of dollars to the companies who create data centers, which is so secure against even the nuclear bombs. But it's no longer needed. Those things are gone, and you don't have to pay millions of dollars to have one center that you can prevent even the nuclear war, and then have some redundancy. That's gone. Now you have this decentralized blocks that can keep your data in everywhere. You don't have to pay millions of dollars. And the beauty of this is that those infrastructure, those block farms can be utilized by multiple countries, multiple companies. Therefore, the prices will be absolutely much less than having this data center.
If you were talking right now to another CEO, what would you be saying to them about some of the mistakes that you made in your assumption of blockchain? And if you were doing that role again, what would you have changed about your approach?
I would count three things. One of them is lack of knowledge. The second of the cost. And the third is the prioritization. In many businesses, like even in our daily life, that we may say that, okay, I have to run every day to stay healthy. We don't do it because that's not a top priority.
I do, yeah.
That's brilliant. I mean, like truly, like we have to reprioritize some of the things because like when you're running, I run a company that was public. And you're being measured every quarter based on your dividends and whatever the revenue that you need to generate that particular 3 months. But when you look at the blockchain, when it's like a 1 year, not a direct value that brings to your stock prices up or then brings you maybe more dividends, you may not just make it a top priority. But therefore, like I feel the lack of knowledge and thinking that this is very costly. And the third, like it's not in your priority because of your other reasons, as I mentioned, that somewhat not comes to the table early enough. And that's really the key. When it comes to cost side, Kay, today there are companies, they call it BaaS, blockchain as a service. So you don't really need to create your own private blockchain network or system. Like even companies, I don't know if you're allowed to say this, but like large organizations like Oracle, they offer blockchain infrastructures for you. You just come and put your applications on top of that. Therefore, like lack of knowledge, cost, and then unfortunately prioritization always prevented me.
Are the savings from going from a data center to a blockchain?
First of all, if you're in a business that are a lot of transactions, and then if you want to really record all those transactions, if you have a millions of transactions per second, I wouldn't recommend to go into blockchain right away, just to look at it, what part of that transactions you want to record it, because it could be quite costly. I mean, regardless of the trust and everything else that you will be transparency you're bringing to your consumers, it may not well worth to put everything there. And then it may slow you down because blockchain does have some limitations. We're dealing with thousands of blocks communicating constantly to each other. Therefore, you have to really ask the experts to look into what part of that information needs to be recorded. And what type of system you need to really leverage in order to do this. But other than that, your critical content, please always think about that. Now we have a new technology, new era, and your consumers, market, compliance agencies, governments are going to demand that transparency. And please start thinking about the distributed ledger or the blockchain.
What's the limitations of blockchain?
Speed. Sometimes it's the speed, how big the blockchain system is. Like if you have 1 million blocks trying to record every second, every millisecond transaction and communicate to each other to validate that based on the principles that you develop, then there may be some slowdown for you. But if it's only 100,000, whatever, then it will be different. And again, I don't think that, as you also rightly outlined, you don't need to really put all the data onto the blockchain. There are only critical content. You just need to record it. Like for instance, when you're recording you own an apartment, you don't need to put like how many rooms they have or so. Just put the square meter, your name, location, and all that. That's it. Not many other things. Therefore, like decide on if you're in a transaction business, what content you need to record it. And number two, like what level of content you want to put it in.
Can we talk about the history of blockchain and why it came to the marketplace?
I would say that probably the trust was the main driver behind this technology, especially like many technology-driven people minds understanding that with the blockchain, they can eliminate any, let's say, governance, any type of middleman, and then can deal peer-to-peer. And this is where it came from, P2P, peer-to-peer. What should we do to create an environment that we have the rules, but those rules are abided by everybody. And then we don't really put anybody in the middle when I wanted to talk to you or exchange with you some value, some information. And I think that pushed people to think beyond the pure technology that existed like 7-10 years ago. And I think those are the three drivers. Interest to eliminate the middleman, creating an environment that everybody can truly trust, that there is no manipulation exist. And when you're there, when you record something, it's immutable, it's untouchable. I think those were really the main set. I'm not a technician, but looking into what they achieved by that, I think they really were thinking that way.
Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today. It's been great to talk to you. If anyone wanted to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way forward?
I would say I have a LinkedIn profile, Nihat Arkan, or my company is Yaliyomo, yaliyomo.net. You can reach me there too. So I'll be happy to talk, explain anybody what they like to do. And on top of that, if any of your audience are in the luxury retail and they want to really access to their consumers to prove the authenticity and ownership of the products that they sell, I'm happy to help them as well. But I also appreciated all the brilliant questions and the great time that we exchange many ideas.
Thank you so much. Look, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you here, and I'm sure that those that are listening in have learned a ton as well. So, guys, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for conversations just like this. Also participate by commenting below. Let us know your thoughts on blockchain. What's the stigma that you have attached to it? Are you using it? Do you see it as the future? Also, let me know what topics and questions you have in mind. Who are the business leaders that you would like to most hear from? And I will get them on board. Guys, until we speak next time, bye-bye. Take care and look after yourself.